Hello, it's really good to be back after almost another month since my last post. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that wherever you are, you got to enjoy a bit of nice sunny weather and beautiful bright days. I've been enjoying thoroughly the longer summer days and the bright skies and the nature that came alive. Oh, beautiful. Life has been really busy for me too, as probably it is for you. But yeah, I hope you got to enjoy a bit the summer that knocked our doors, and it's still here, which is great. I don't know if you had a chance. In my previous video, I focused on exploring a bit and discussing a bit about the counseling process and the stages that are within the counseling process, namely the beginnings, the middles, and the ends. Or the endings, as some people name them. So if in the last video we explored the beginnings, in today's videos we'll be focusing on the second stage of the counseling process, and that is the middles. So yeah, without further ado, let me bring up my notes and share with you what I hope to explore and discuss with you today in this video. So first we'll be looking at what this phase is, what this phase and stage are, and how a counselor can know if the client is ready to begin this stage, to transition from the beginnings to the middles. Then we'll be exploring a bit about the internal experience of the client and of the counselor, what this stage might be and feel like for them. We'll also touch a bit on how the relationship might look like at this stage and how it might feel for both of them. Then thirdly, we'll be discussing we'll be touching on the knowledge and the skills that are required by the counselor to have in order to be able to know how to help and guide the client through this stage. So we'll be looking mainly at what challenge is and its aim, and how the counselor can help the client to experience change, making use of the challenge and making use of that counseling relationship in order to experience transformation. And fourthly, but not lastly, I'm hoping I can get a bit of time to share with you about my experience and how this module 2 felt like in terms of learning and internal experience and the practice and so on. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight to point number 1, which is understanding what the middle stages and phase is. So the middle stages of counseling involves the client finding new and more helpful perspective of their concerns. So when we are in the midst of our difficulty, sometimes we do tend to wear blinkers and keep doing things the way we have always done them, ensuring, of course, the same results, unfortunately. And we can also easily forget how resourceful we are. So if in the initial stage the original concern is kind of put forward by the client, in the middle stage the counselor aims to begin to help the client to explore and discover the underlying issues of their concerns, of their difficulties, of their pain, what to expect as a client. We'll be returning back to explaining a bit more about the stage, the middle stages. You will see as I run through all the points, you'll gain a bit more understanding of what the middle stages is and what it entails for both the counselor and the client. So as a client, well, before actually I'm exploring that, how can the counselor know if the client is ready to begin this stage? So mainly, the beginning stage it's not necessarily, it's not written in stone how many sessions should a beginning stage has, because it varies so much from client to client, from experience to experience. So there isn't such a thing as we know that for the first 6 sessions that's the beginning stage, and then for the next 6 sessions that's the middle stage, and so on. So it can be that for some clients, given their experience and their difficulty, the level of difficulty they're struggling with, and the nature of their experience, It might be that the beginning stage can be only as short as 3 sessions or as long as 12 sessions. So yeah, it varies a lot. So a counselor can know if a client is ready to begin. I'm going to have a look at my notes. To begin the second stage of the counseling process, which is the middle, when they feel like the client really begins to trust them and really begins to allow themselves to be vulnerable and to open up at a deeper level and to not only touch the surface of the issues they are concerned about and struggle with, but really feel comfortable and keen and trusting the relationship and the counselor to go into more deeper meaning of what is they're experiencing. So the counselor would know if a client is ready to begin the middle stages if they will see that willingness and that commitment and that trust. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing that will indicate to the counselor that the client is ready to begin the middle stages. Yeah, and the sharing just gets deeper and clients manage to not run away from their experience and respond well to the counselor, helping them to focus and yeah, as I said, explore deeper. So that's the main thing that will help a counselor know if the client is ready to begin the middle stages, which is not an easy stage. It's actually probably the most, I wouldn't say it is the most important in terms of helping the client to experience change, but the beginning is really important as well because it sets the foundation without which this stage wouldn't be possible. So as a client, what to expect? Be ready to be supported. Be ready to learn how to focus and to go from sharing general and vague content and experiences to learning and being supported to go into more particular and specific issues and aspects of those specific issues. Be ready to be held, be ready to be contained, supported, encouraged all the way through. So everything that the counselor offers at the beginning stage continues very much through the middle stage. So you're not left in limbo, you're not left without all that beautiful support and nurture you're used to in the beginning stages. Be ready as well to have your views acknowledged, but also challenged. Be ready to discuss and disagree with your counselor, and be ready to leave your comfort zone at a certain point. It's really important for the counselor to know how to help the client navigate this stage. So we'll be talking about that a bit later. In terms of the internal experience of the client, it's really important for the counselor to be aware of what the client might feel like so they can empathize with them. So the client can feel a sense of relief, a sense of further trust and deeper trust in the progress, in the process, in the relationship, in the counselor. The client might begin to feel the benefits of the counseling relationship and the process. Also, the client might experience a sense of moving forward. They may seek more input from the counselor. They may gain more self-awareness and they may begin to learn how to reflect better and deeper for themselves to gain that self-awareness. Barriers in the relationship and their relationship, client counselor, and that therapeutic relationship might begin being removed. And by barriers being removed, I'm not saying that the boundaries will dissolve, not at all. The boundaries are always there, and it's really actually very important for the counselor to know how to maintain the boundaries, especially at this stage. By barriers being lowered, what I mean, it's that sense of trust. So the client begins to trust the counselor and the relationship and the process at a further, deeper level. So then they don't hold back as much as they may be used to at the beginning, which is the most natural and normal thing. The client might be feeling happier, having more confidence, a sense of contentment already might be experienced by the client, or the other way around, the sense of urgency and unsatisfaction and feeling scared and feeling overwhelmed. They might experience potentially unsettling and overwhelming, intense emotions, and it's really important for the counselor to know how to hold that and how to contain the client in that space and their emotions. And the client might be experiencing re-traumatizing fear, a fear of the past as well as fear of the future. Old emotions might resurface and reactions, and old wound will be open, might be open, hopefully will be open in order to help heal them. The client might be experiencing change, positive or negative. We also need to be aware of the negative aspect of change as well. You'll also see the client maybe comes a bit more prepared to the sessions, and they start to want to move towards a goal. It really depends for every single client of how they react and how they interpret and experience these middle stages. The client may be experiencing dependency on that relationship or on the process of counseling. They may be experiencing a bit of frustration, anger, disappointment, or elation at the thought of, oh my gosh, my life is going to change, things are going to get better for me. So yeah, it really varies a lot, but I hope this kind of gave you a bit of an understanding of what a client might be experiencing at this stage, and how it's really important for the counselor to be aware of potential experiences that their client might have. In terms of the relationship, so the counseling relationship begins to be at this stage begins to be a bit more natural, hopefully a bit more robust. Both parties, the counselor and the client, are more involved, and they bring more of themselves to their relationship. It will be challenging, reciprocal challenging for both the counselor and the client, and it is true that at this stage, the counseling relationship can break down as well. So that's a really, really important aspect to be aware of as a counselor and as a client, because here it's really important to realize whether this is a good match or not, because if the client doesn't manage to experience that level of trust, and also if the counselor doesn't know how to build that level of trust between them and the client, unfortunately their relationship will break down, which is in a way sad, but on the other hand it's really important not to stay in a counseling relationship if you as a client do not feel that the match is a good match and that you could work and learn how to trust this person. And also some clients will reach this stage and then realize that they're not ready for counseling, or the counselor will realize that the client is never ready to move forward, to move through the process of counseling, but maybe they need a prolonged beginnings phase, maybe years before they are ready to face things and ready to dig deep and work on things. So yeah, it really varies, but that gives the counselor a bit of structure, and to the client as well, as to what the journey would look like. In terms of the counselor and their experience and feelings, similar to the client, the counselor can experience frustration or satisfaction because of potentially their own expectations of how the relationship should develop, and how the client might develop or not. As I said in one of my first videos, it's really important for the counselor to always be aware of not having their own agenda and going at the pace of the client. Here again, it depends really much what modality you are trained in. If you are a CBT counselor or therapist, you will be having more or less an agenda, and you will want to help the client focus on each and get involved in each stage. So you'll have more of an active role in working on that, setting that agenda and helping the client to work and bring themselves to it all the time. Whereas if you work from a person-centered perspective, it's really important to not have your set agenda and allow the client to guide the sessions at their own pace. So here it's really important to have that in mind, to bear that in mind, linking that to any feelings of frustration or satisfaction that you might experience as a counselor, thinking whether you're doing a good job or not with the client. And it happens many times. You as a counselor, you will be doing your absolute best, but your client might not respond as much as you would like, or as much as you think they are capable of. So it's really important to pace yourself, and allowing the client to go at their own pace. Managing your own expectations from the process, the relationship, and the client, and their progress or regress or stuckness. You as a counselor might be experiencing feelings of incompetency, or the very well-known imposter syndrome, thinking and feeling like you are not doing enough and wondering what is it you could do best. And here's where supervision helps massively, because it gives you a sense of perspective, and it helps you understand what is it maybe you are doing great and what is it maybe you could improve, or maybe just to acknowledge the fact that you are doing your absolute best, but it just takes a lot of time for your client to come on board. And as I said, needing to go at your client's pace. You might be constrained to offer restricted session numbers depending on the policy of the organization you work for, and again, depending on the modality, the training modality you're qualified in. Again, a CBT approach will allow you, because it's a short-term form of therapy and counseling, you will be allowed to offer anything between 8 and 12 sessions. So yeah, if you think of the CBT approach, the beginnings, the middles, and the endings stages of the counseling process is a bit, not a bit, quite a lot forced, because you are responsible in some way of helping to guide the client through that beginning stage, through that middle stage and through that ending stage in a short number of sessions. So yeah, it's really tricky. For some people it really works, depending on the issues that they have brought forward at the beginning, or the issues that surface throughout the process. So again, the number of sessions, and if you're restricted to a specific number of sessions, that will impact this stage massively. So that's something really important to bear in mind as a counselor, and also to make the client aware of this factor, depending on the type of on the modality of counseling and therapy you offer to your client, and also the nature of the issues that your client brings forward. Let's say if someone comes and you really understand that they have a huge experience of trauma, CBT will not necessarily help them to uncover everything. Well, it's not like you are looking to help them heal from everything all at once, because this is not possible. Healing, it's a long-winded process, and it varies how long it takes for each person. But it's really important to make the client aware of what is that you can offer within your counseling approach that you're using, and the restrictions you're having if you work for a specific organization. So I hope this gave you a bit of an understanding of the internal experience of the client and the counselor, as well as the nature of the counseling relationship. In terms of progressing to the point number 3, what knowledge and skills are required for the counselor to have at this stage? So in this stage, once the counselor seeks to understand the client's readiness to begin this phase, the main aims are to help the client focus and experience change and transformation. So main skills that the counselor must have to know and be able to guide the client through this stage is helping them to focus, challenge the client, helping the client to gain deeper self-awareness, monitoring the client's experience and pace, learning as a counselor, knowing how to negotiate and help the client to set goals or objectives to work towards. We'll be returning to this in a moment. Foundational knowledge that is required for you as a counselor to have. It really stems very much from the first stage. So really good knowledge and understanding of attachment, of loss and of grief, of the process of change, and of the experience that a human being can go through, emotional experience and psychological experience and physical experience, when they're going through a process of change, embarking in the process of change, in the middle of it, towards the end of it. I've touched briefly on this in my previous video, so please check out if you want to learn more a bit about that. And yeah, the client, helping the client to understand themselves and to gain further self-awareness. And also the counselor themselves, they really need to have a higher and advanced level of self-awareness and understanding, and absolutely advanced empathy in terms of kind of making sense of the middles. So the counselor will be offering advanced empathy, will be listening to and using themselves, himself, herself, themselves, as a tool to help the client navigate this process. They'll be monitoring the client's use of relationship with self, how much will the client maybe project or transfer onto the counselor. They'll be offering a consistent and reliable relationship. So again, maintaining those boundaries and those agreements that were set at the beginning of the process. We'll be using immediacy. So this is really important. It's really important for a counselor to know how to bring something on the table, and this help the client to discuss that and explore that then and there, when the client has brought that on the table, when the client has mention of that, but maybe has been going away immediately as soon as they mention it. Because some clients will indicate they are ready, but they need really good support to stay in that readiness stage. So although they give you signs that they are ready to go deeper, they really need good support. So immediacy, using the skill of immediacy, it's really important for the counselor to help the client focus. And by focus, I mean helping the client to go from abstract in general and vague to really particular, specific examples, situations, experiences. So going from abstract to concretizing, going from general to particular, particularizing, being really specific, going from universal to situated, locating things very specifically, and maybe going from blurred and very vague situation to very sharply focused aspects, and hitting the core of it. Going from detachment, helping the client to go from detachment to relatedness, to help the client relate instead of detach from their own experience, because this is a coping mechanism. Client will be detaching from their own experience, will disconnect from their own experience, therefore from themselves. And yeah, it's really important for the counselor to know how to use challenge and constructively facilitating change and self-challenge for the client, and not using it as a form of assault or invasion or poking at the client. Understanding that change always comes from within the client. Really important, knowing how to acknowledge if the client is stuckness, because this is a really common experience. There will be a lot of people who will just get a sense, feel a sense, have a sense, and actually feel and be stuck in their own understanding of things, in their own experience. So yeah, and also it's really important for the counselor to get comfortable and help the client to get comfortable with not knowing, with uncertainty. So yeah, I hope that so far all this that I've shared makes sense. Going back to the main focus in the middle stages, which is the capacity and the skill and the ability to challenge. There are two main views of challenge that can be held in the counseling and psychotherapy field. So one is that challenging is a deliberate and consciously used strategy or skill that the counselor uses. And the second view is that the challenge is the other person's response to our action as counselors, whether we're being, as counselors, as clients, whether we're being accepted or empathetically reflecting discrepancies in their stories. So like you would be challenged by someone's behavior. You as a counselor or you as a client will be challenged by your counselor's behavior. So looking a bit as what challenges a skill means, the aim of challenges a skill is to encourage the person, the client that you are aiming to help, look at other viewpoints and accept the value of some other viewpoints, although here's where challenge comes in, yeah, understanding and accepting a different set of not different set of values, but a different viewpoint. Also, to understand as a counselor that the client might not agree at first, and they might find other viewpoints really painful. They might not want to leave their comfort zone or their own point of view because that gives them that sense of comfort. And unfortunately also keeps them where they are. I say unfortunate because that's against the process of change, but it's really important when we use challenge as a skill as a counselor to be aware of. It is not going to be really easy at all. Quite the opposite for the client to be challenged on their own points of view and to be open to other points of view. So that's why having that deeper trust in you as a counselor and in the relationship and in the process will help the client come out of their comfort zone, come up to their cocoon and dip their fingers and toes into something that looks different, unknown. So it's really important again to, as a counselor, to be aware of what the client might be experiencing internally. A lot of clients will feel really scared. So it's really important for us to be aware of that. Challenge must always be tentative, gentle, but also firm and specific. So the aim of challenge as a skill is to move the client forward by confronting them with some aspect of their thoughts, feelings, or behavior, but we need to do it in a very tentative and gentle manner, non-confrontational. Because we'll be looking at challenging some discrepancies or contradictions that they bring forward or emulate or display. We'll be looking at some of illogical or overreactive, unhelpful black and white ways of thinking that keeps them stuck or keeps them spinning in the same place where they've been for years maybe. You'll be looking at challenging vagueness and confusion and help the client focus and be specific, and that's not easy. A lot of people like just going around spinning the tail but not necessarily focusing on anything because that's what they did for a long time, and it's really unknown and uncomfortable to be doing different. And also really important, challenging the client that will make responsible at all times and others for their misfortune and for their trauma, which to a great extent it is true, and it's important to help the client acknowledge that responsibility that other people had. But in order to move forward, we need to help the client move from from blaming others towards just focusing on here and now and taking responsibility from here onwards of their experience. So yeah, that is a bit about challenge as a skill. In terms of challenge as a response, so those holding the view that challenge is a response would expect the person to feel challenged in ways that would have a unique meaning for that person, rather than expect everyone to feel challenged by having contradictions brought to their attention. So what do we mean by that? Let's say if you have a client who is an individual who has been brought up in a very argumentative and toxic environment, he or she, they might relish in actually feeling comforted by such confrontation rather than feeling challenged by it. and that was a really, really good point that gave me food for thought. I grew up in a very argumentative and belligerent environment. So when I am being challenged, when I'm being confronted, I actually enjoy it, and that really, really gave me food for thought. How much do I actually benefit from being challenged, and the way in which I'm being challenged, as a response from a counselor, from a therapist, because I actually enjoyed being challenged, and being confronted, I took it on as a challenge and tried to become the best at arguing. So it didn't necessarily challenge as a response from the counselor, wasn't necessarily very helpful for me to start with. So it's really important to have this in mind as well, how challenge can be used as a skill and how challenge can be used as a response, and what is the best way of using challenge for your specific situation or your specific client, and how maybe your client will be benefiting best from what kind of challenge you're offering to them. Again, that really feeds into you getting to know the client really well throughout the session, and you'll be discovering new things about your client in the middle section that you didn't know about and you couldn't know about anyway, because this is the stage where clients open further, go deeper, hold back less, hopefully, and trust you more. So then you in turn get to understand them more and learn more about them and what is it really, really helps them, although it might not feel very comfortable. So yeah, I hope that everything that I shared so far made sense. I shall have a wee sip of tea. Maybe another aspect I wanted to bring forward before I share a bit about my experience with this module, is if we look at the process of counseling, the beginning stages is the place, as I mentioned in my previous video, is the place where you establish the relationship, and you offer the empathy, the openness, the acceptance, the genuineness. I always have trouble pronouncing this word, authenticity, correctly. Trust, openness, of course, you'll be ways of doing. You'll be offering the active listening, the observing, the sensing, reflecting back on feeling, which is really, really bread and butter for the middle section as well, stage. Paraphrasing, summarizing, providing information, and exploring alternative, identifying strengths, and so on, and acknowledging difficulties. So that, if that's the beginning stages, at the second stage in the middles, you will be, so if in the beginning stage you are coming together in that relationship, and in the middles you will be looking to work together, deepening the relationship, widening the exploration of the issues, exploring the feelings, helping the client gain insight and understanding, and you as well as a counselor gain insight and understanding about your client and of their experience, helping the client to make connections between experiences and patterns of being and of thinking, holding those boundaries, as I was saying, is really, really important, and reworking those boundaries if we feel like that's not working for the client or for the process and the relationship itself. In terms of ways of being, yeah, all the aspects as a counselor, all the aspects continuing to offer that unconditional positive regard, being authentic, open, offering the trust and constant advanced empathy, listening and using yourself as a counselor as a tool for the relationship and for the client, and monitoring the client's use of yourself, as well as how you use the relationship and the process to help them, monitoring at what point you are within that stage. In terms of doing as a counselor, again, all the aspects that I mentioned, that I just briefly mentioned that are within the beginning stages, plus helping the client, really, really important, helping the client to begin to focus and to be specific and to be concrete, and then linking that with challenging the client in the best way possible for them. Although, again, you as a counselor, it's really important to be able to contain the uncomfort and the discomfort that your client will go through, but it's really, really important for you to know how to hold that space for them in order to experience change. And yeah, negotiating and setting goals, helping the client to negotiate and set goals and think of way of moving forwards. So if in the beginning stage the client or the sessions focus, the sharing in the session tend to focus a lot on maybe the client being clearly focused on past experiences and that how that affected them, and by past experiences I'm not only referring to childhood experiences, but I don't know, experiences that happened 3 months ago or yesterday. So at in the middle stage and phase, you will help the client to again focus on here and now, focus on how that past experience has affected and how can we make the best of it for ourselves and move forward. What have we learned from that and how can we move forward from there? So if that's the middle stages, focus is really much, as I said, on here and now and shift perspective, and being really, really specific about how things are and how things can be changed, be that our perspective as a client or our way of thinking, our pattern of behavior, our routines, our habits, our lifestyle. So the middle stages of the counseling are the bread and butter of change, the bread and butter of transformation, the bread and butter of healing. And again, as I mentioned, for some clients, the middle stages can last for another 20 sessions, depending very much on their personality, their experience, their resourcefulness, and their vulnerabilities as well, and limitations. It's really, really important to help the client understand their limitations, because some clients would just want to move forward very quickly and will not have patience with themselves. So helping them pace themselves and not force themselves through this process and allowing it to happen naturally. So yeah, these are kind of the main aspects I wanted to discuss with you with regards to the middle stages. I hope you've gained a bit of better understanding of what the middle stages feels like. So as a bit of a summary, what we did so far, we looked at the what's the middle stage and phase is, and how can a counselor understand when the client is ready to begin this stage. We also explored a bit about the internal experience of the counselor and the client, I mean, what they might be feeling, and how the relationship looks like. And we also discussed a bit about the knowledge and skills that are required by a counselor to have in order to help the client to navigate this stage and experience change, by mainly using the skill of helping them to focus, challenging them, knowing how to negotiate, and set goals and move forward, always using the principle of immediacy, tackling things there and then rather than leaving content from a session onto another, which will happen, but it's really important as a counselor to be aware of that. So yeah, the last point and the last aspect I wanted to discuss a bit with you was my experience of this module. Wow, it has been a really, really intense experience for me, to be honest. This has been the first time when I've looked at attachment, loss, transition and change in such a systematic way. As I previously told you, each session consisted of a bit of theory, exploring a bit basic theory behind these topics of change, of transformation, of loss, of attachment. We also explored in terms of topics and theory. We explored sexuality and as trainee counselors understanding our own sexuality and how this can impact the way how we work. Then we also looked at working with differences, and we had really, really good helpful exercises helping us to focus and understand our own biases and how we interact with other people based on what we understand as different and how we interact with what is different, and how can we learn to work with differences, and how will we be able to work with people that are very, very different than us, and how will we be able to offer that empathy and unconditional positive regard to very different people than us who have a very, very different set of beliefs and values. So it has been really, really good. So we focused on theory, then we did again the triad practice, the listening practice, where we focused on developing that skill of helping the client to focus and challenge the client in a way that it's most helpful and beneficial to them. Also, a really important aspect that we learned about was knowing when to use the challenge and knowing how to use the challenge, and always thinking, why are we challenging the client? Are we challenging the client because it's in their best interest and it's for their change and transformation and healing? Or are we looking or seeking consciously or unconsciously to challenge the client because we want them to think like us or be like us or adopt our set of beliefs and values? So yeah, that has been really, really, really good learning for me. And yeah, mainly it has developed a lot my ability to be aware of my own values and beliefs and biases. And the module 2 also focused on us helping understand our personal motives and values behind wanting to be in this field of helping, of therapy and of counseling. So yeah, it's been really, really intense, but I've learned so much. I've really enjoyed it. I found quite difficult the assessment that we had to do. So again, we had to do a video assessment, a recorded 15-minute session where we did therapy with one of our peers, we did counseling, and yeah, we had to display the skills we've learned so far, and also the skills that we aimed to learn in module 2, which was helping client focus, using immediacy, helping client shift perspective or understanding by challenging them as a skill, using challenge as a skill, or by challenging them by offering that empathetic response as a empathetic approach as a response, and saying the client feeling challenged by that because they weren't used to something like that and they didn't know how to react to that. So yeah, really, really good learning. I hope that has been interesting for you to hear. I've definitely found being able to explore a bit this content with you very helpful for me. So I hope you find it helpful as well. That's it for today. In the next video, I'll be looking at exploring the endings stage, which is the last stage of the counseling process. So yeah, until then, I hope you will enjoy another few sunny days. It's just end of June, so hopefully for July we'll still get a lot of sun and bright, beautiful skies and nice weather. Thank you very much for being here. I hope this is helpful and that you are finding the content interesting and stimulating as I find it. I look forward to seeing you next time if you'll be here. Until then, take good care of yourself. And yeah, always, always, always remember to be kind to yourself and to others. Kindness is always the secret. Bye for now.